Red Dwarf is the sitcom that boldly goes where no sitcom has gone before.
He's a smig.
I've been call-smegging every day of my life since 1988.
Step up to red alert.
Sir, are you absolutely sure? It does mean changing the bulb.
Couldn't think of anything better. Great scripts, the opportunity to perform them, that's what Red Dwarf's all about.
Its spaced-out adventures have been making us laugh for over 30 years, and the voyage continues.
I didn't think that 30-odd years later I'd still be sticking on the dreadlocks and the leather jacket.
Oh, look, a bit of poppadom.
It's very age-inappropriate now, let me tell you.
In this series, we get the inside story on the world's most celebrated sci-fi comedy from the people who made it.
I'm almost annoyed. I'm 100% unaware of the mask. I haven't got a clue that I've got a mask on. I'm just crying.
I humbly name this moon Rimmer.
The character of Rimmer, I don't think I'd base it on anyone in particular. I couldn't find anyone on the planet who was quite that sad.
We both said that at the same time. And that.
You'll never get bored of being in Red Dwarf because you don't know where they're going to take you next.
We delve into the archives to reveal rare behind-the-scenes footage.
I've gone and screwed up very early on in the whole show.
Catch up with the cast for exclusive on-set chats.
When you can watch yourself doing something, you know it's you, and you've got no memory of doing it. It's an alarming moment.
It was bad news when it happened. It was last week.
Yeah.
And hear from some famous fans.
It was one of the shows that people talked about in the playground.
It was such a big show in my life. It was incredible.
Boy, am I glad to see you.
It's just a brilliant, creative, highly original sitcom that also takes the best of sitcom tradition and puts it somewhere new and takes it somewhere else.
Here it comes!
Over the next hour, we look at the origins of the show.
I wanted something different, something unique.
How its cast were brought together.
We were sort of working well enough together for people to see that there was potentially great chemistry.
And how it was very nearly lost in space before it even began.
We thought this is all over.
So sit back, slob out, and enjoy the first 3 million years of Red Dwarf.
Still on board looking for a way home in a really hot curry.
I am Tarka Doll.
Who'd have thought it?
For decades now, we've immersed ourselves in the Red Dwarf universe. And at its centre is the most memorable cast of comedy characters ever assembled.
It's 4 complete oiks in space. One human being, it's a hologram, a cat, and an android.
It's the very classic sitcom setup where you have different personalities who can't escape from each other.
The crew got wiped out, you survived. That's charmed.
I survived to live the rest of my life with you, not charmed.
There is a great one-line premise at the heart of all of this, which is, what if the last human being left alive is a complete waste of space?
And that last man standing is unwashed space bum and curry connoisseur, Dave Lister.
There's been a fire in here.
It's a small one. Put it out with me beer.
For goodness sake, Lister, that's terrible.
Don't panic, I've got another one.
He's just a lazy layabout. He's got no ambition, lives in the moment.
He is a slob who is obsessed with curry and lager.
Class.
You know, he's never quite been house-trained, let's put it like that.
He's Rimmer's arch nemesis. They always screw each other over whenever they get a chance.
Drop dead, Rimmer.
Already have done.
Encore.
He's loathed by Lister but loved by us. It's everyone's favourite smeghead, Arnold J. Rimmer.
Now hear this, because it's only coming once. We surrendered totally and without condition. Thank you, guys.
He is probably king of the losers. He is the petrol for much of the comedy.
Rimmer is slightly troubled. He thinks everything is the fault of the world, but he's not higher up in the scale of things than where he is.
Rimmer really wants to be supreme commander of the universe. He ain't ever gonna get there.
If this funky feline was cream, he'd never stop licking himself. He's the cat.
Oh, 6 of my nipples are tingling. Ow! I've given pleasure to the world because I have such a beautiful ass.
This strange hybrid of human and cat who has the dress sense of Prince.
It's just a character who's self-obsessed megalomaniac.
I'm not here to help. Read my CV.
does not help, does not clean, will have sex with anything.
His warranty ran out yonks ago, but if you need a toilet unblocking, just call for Crichton.
If you took a butler and a French maid and Mr. Spock and let them engage in an orgy, they would out Crichton.
He's full of admiration for the human race. Morning, sir. And he wants to emulate them, and it's very hard for him because he's programmed to be just a service droid.
So that's the boys from the Dwarf. But how did our fantastical Fab Four and their intergalactic misadventures come to exist in the first place? To find out, we'll have to travel far, far back through a hole in the space-time continuum to another reality. The 1980s. A time of Maggie, miner strikes, and money. It was also a time when a couple of blokes from Manchester, Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, had established themselves among Britain's top comedy writers.
Before Red Dwarf, Rob and I were head writers at Spitting Image. We've been brought in to try and modernise it, so we had a sort of carte blanche to change it any which way we wanted.
They even penned an unlikely #1 hit. But for Rob and Doug, putting words into the mouths of rubber puppets just wasn't enough.
We wanted to write a science fiction sitcom. We'd done a sketch called Dave Holland's Space Cadet for a radio show we wrote called Son of Cliché. So that was our starting off point, which was basically a lone survivor of a space accident with his computer.
This is Dave Hollins, Stellar Trader Class D, calling Earthcom 7 Beta 7. I'm still alone on the Melissa 5. The others are still dead. I'm still 7 trillion light years away from Earth. Yesterday, we hit a space storm. Acid rain, fireballs, meteors, radiation. Brightened up in the afternoon, though.
We went off to my parents' cottage in North Wales where we wrote the pilot script of Red Dwarf.
That first script was conceived as a cross between Alien and The Odd Couple.
Obviously, the concept of the show is that steptoe and son scenario where it's two people trapped in a life together.
Lister and Rimmer could be two blokes on a factory production line, or, you know, could be anywhere, you know. But they're in this fascinating scenario in space.
What's the plan for the day then? Slobbing in the morning, followed by slobbing in the afternoon, then a bit of a snooze before the main evening slob.
If you just look behind the science fiction, it is porridge in space. It's how people get on when they're forced into a confined situation, and it's about those human interactions, and that's where the comedy comes from.
So Rob and Doug pitched their brilliant idea to the BBC, but at a time when most comedies were still very conventional, the Beeb turned it down 3 times.
Things were then looking pretty bleak, which is when Rob and I decided we would go in and we would try and pitch it to the then head of comedy, Gareth Gwenlyn. Gareth had an amazing track record. He'd done Fools and Horses, he'd done Yes Minister. But when it came to Red Dwarf, he just didn't get it.
His name got turned into a term of abuse on Red Dwarf. You're a proper Gwenlyn, you are.
You're a total Gwenlyn, do you know that, Crichton?
Oh, yes, Mr. Davidson.
But Paul Jackson, fresh from his success as producer of The Young Ones, recognised a good thing when he saw it, and knew a man in Manchester who was on the lookout for a new sitcom.
I wanted something different, something unique. And I was beginning to despair when Paul Jackson said to me one day, read this. I think I got as far as page 4, where the cat shimmied round the corner as the cat did. And I laughed out loud.
Hey, this has been a good day. I've eaten 5 times, I've slept 6 times, and I've made a lot of things mine. Tomorrow, I'm gonna see if I can have sex with something. Ow, yeah!
The most important thing is not the sci-fi, it's the situation the characters get themselves in and the quality of the comedy. And the comedy was excellent. I thought, this is it, we'll do it. And that's the story of why it came to Manchester and didn't go anywhere else.
Coming up, how one member of the crew was almost left behind.
We got a letter saying, thanks for coming along, but no thanks.
And the plug is pulled on Red Dwarf before it even starts.
If it's all to fall flat because of an electrician strike, I was absolutely gutted.
It's 1986, and the green light has finally been given by the BBC for a brand new science fiction sitcom. Creators Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, together with producer-director Ed Bye, now have to find their interstellar cast.
Our feeling was we want proper actors. We didn't want just sort of stand-up comedians who can't really act. So we went into the process, saw some great actors.
And first up for the part of Lister was future Hollywood star Alan Rickman.
He agreed to come in and talk about it. And he was interested, but he wasn't particularly keen on it being performed in front of a studio audience.
Hugh Laurie was considered for Rimmer, but Rob and Doug agreed to audition Chris Barry, best known at the time for supplying many of the voices on Spitting Image.
Well, sir, let me answer this way. I don't know. Pretty smart for a guy of 103, huh?
I went along to read for Rimmer. I just put my heart and soul into Rimmer for a few readings. And then after a while, I think we got a letter saying, thanks for coming along, but no thanks.
The search for a Smeg head looked to be over when another future film star, Alfred Molina, bagged the role of Rimmer. But who would be his Lister?
The reason I got the part was I was doing a show called Saturday Live with Ben Elton.
My name's Craig Charles.
And I was one of the regulars. I used to do poetry, sort of like angry young man poetry about Thatcher and the police and stuff like that.
Didn't ask if we'd been thieving or where we'd stashed the cash. Didn't take our fingerprints or stupid mugshot photographs. So anyway, he didn't bother doing none of that. He just jumped out the van and hit us on the head, got back into White Maria and left us there for dead.
Paul Jackson was producing it, and he was leaving after the first series, and he was going off to do this curious sitcom set in a spaceship for the Beeb, and he said, I want you to read the part of Cat, because I'm having a few problems. Is it racist or not?
Hey! Smooth!
I said, no, the part of the cat isn't racist, it's just really cool. Can I be Lister? And Paul said, OK, come and do a read-through. So I went to do a read-through, and first met Rob and Doug. Unbeknownst to me, there were two Mancunians. There's a historic antipathy between Mancunians and Scousers, you know. And I thought that there was no way on earth that these two Manchester lads would let the hero of their piece be a Scouser. But they gave me the part.
Craig's audition wowed Rob and Doug, and he landed Lister. But they had second thoughts about their Rimmer, and so Chris Barry was recalled to pair up with Craig.
Right, corridor 159.
We were sort of working at that first scene, that coming around the corner, you know, with the fixing the chicken soup machine.
Lister, don't hum and don't make any stupid sounds with your cheeks. Lister, one more sound, anything, and you're on report, Miledo. What job number's this? Right, that's it.
We were sort of working well enough together for people to see that there was potentially great chemistry.
With Craig and Chris on board, attention now turned to a deadpan stand-up called Norman Lovett to voice Red Dwarf's computer Holly.
I'd like £1 for every time someone said love it, I bet you do. So I'd have about £6 or £7 by now.
And they said, well, do you want to read for this? Everybody's Dead, Dave. And so I just read it and got it, you know.
Everybody's dead, Dave.
Peterson isn't, is he?
Everybody is dead, Dave.
It was natural, it was just right for me, because I knew this is funny.
Everybody is dead, everybody is dead, Dave.
Wait, are you trying to tell me everybody's dead?
Should have never let him out in the first place.
Now for the trickiest piece of casting. Who on earth could they find to play a cat?
It's got to be an actor who is very agile, is very able to get that feline look and feel.
My foray into television actually happened from being in the dance group, the Second Generation. I was one of Lena Zavaroni's dancers at the Beeb back in the day.
Pardon me, boy, is that the Chattanooga choo-choo? Track 29. Boy, you can give me a shine.
I was used to dressing up. It's very dandy and dapper and showbizy, and which is exactly what the cat is. He doesn't have a passport, he has an equity card.
I'm looking nice, my shadow's looking nice. What a team! We are unbelievable.
I loved the cat character in Red Dwarf, and I could visualise it. And Danny John Jules, in the end, was exactly that visualisation.
So instead of proper actors, what we wound up with, a poet, an impressionist, a stand-up comedian, and a dancer. Looking back, the best possible cast we could ever have imagined.
We're all from disparate parts of the entertainment community, and when you put us all together, who'd know if it clicked or not, but it kind of clicked really quite quickly, and the rest is history, as they say.
In January 1987, as sets were being built in Manchester, the cast of Red Dwarf assembled at the infamous BBC rehearsal rooms in West London, affectionately dubbed the Acton Hilton.
A rather ugly, tall building the BBC had, and on every floor there would be a sort of different sitcom or shows.
You went up to your sort of a gymnasium-type room and you had the sets laid out, and we sort of rehearsed it up like a play, and it was fun.
There was 4 very different people in that room. There was 2 kind of things going on. Trying to gel us 4 people and then trying to gel us 4 characters.
I was always just trying to keep pace with these guys. I'd never acted before either, so I was always just trying to not let the side down.
I think we were nervous, but we were always full of ourselves. There was so much banter going on. Obviously, there was nerves there, but everyone gave full performance.
Everything was in place. Red Dwarf was ready to begin its journey. And then...
BBC management says a full range of scheduled programmes will be broadcast, despite a strike by more than 500 television electricians. They went on indefinite strike at midnight on Saturday.
Just as we were going to start episode 1, there was an electrician strike, so we couldn't film the series, so we just kept rehearsing.
We had to keep doing it just in case they decided to go back to work.
And remember, we've also spent the money on the sets, the costumes, props, everything. And I honestly thought at that stage we'd lost it.
So we thought, wow, this is all over.
It's all to fall flat because of an electrician strike. I was absolutely gutted.
The 8-week strike had caused havoc, and the potential cost of rebuilding the sets meant it looked as if the series, much like Lister, would be stuck in stasis. But one man had arranged for his spaceship to be safely stashed away.
The executive said, well, Peter, you've probably destroyed the sets, haven't you? I said, no, I haven't. Got them stored. Everything's there. Everything's waiting to go. We can remount this once the strike is over. And that was the final point where they said, OK, you can do it again.
A second chance for the series meant that, with extra rehearsal time, the cast could add even more quirks to their characters.
Me and my shadow. Oh, come on, boy.
I just kept seeing all the sort of catty, showbizy, flamboyant, egotistical people I could think of who could go into that image. People like Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Screaming Jay Hawkins, James Brown, dancing, Owen. If you listen to all of them, they all sing, ow, you know, good golly, Miss Molly. They're all up there.
I think Rob and Doug were saying, yeah, Rimsey's got to have a, I think he's got to have a special Rimsey salute. I kind of ended up doing, I don't know, 14 different varieties of salute, you know. What I used to say, it was sort of a long way up and then into 5 turns and then in and then shortest way down. And then you can do a quick one like that.
Coming up, Red Dwarf is launched onto our screens.
I said, look, this is either going to be the greatest thing ever made or it's going to be the worst pile of poo in the history of television.
And we reveal what the lyrics to the theme tune could have been.
I want to taste lobsters and coconuts. I want to swim nakedly.
Pump up the volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume, dance, dance.
It's the autumn of 1987, and cameras are due to roll on board Red Dwarf for the very first time at the BBC's Oxford Road studios in Manchester.
BBC Northwest Oxford Road,
tiny little studio. The only other show getting made in there was A Question of Sport, and then us, and we had the same crew. And they were like, what? You know, this guy was lighting Question of Sport last week and then Red Dwarf the next week.
I always remember watching the first series of Red Dwarf and thinking, although this is colour TV, everything looks like black and white. Because we were so sort of drained, I don't know why, River was drained completely. And then the grey sets, it was sort of like monochrome, it was quite weird, you know.
My first memories of, like, Red Dwarf, of those first few series, it looked a bit too like a studio set. It didn't feel like we were on a spaceship to me. The dimensions were all wrong. I mean, the corridors wouldn't be that wide. And the floor was... It was just obviously a studio floor, you know, that kind of stuff.
You touch that guitar, Lister, I'll remove the E string and garrote you with it.
Can I do anything? Is it OK if I breathe? Can I breathe?
What we were trying to do is not what you'd expect with a science fiction, which is everything's clean and white and spangly new. We wanted everything to be a bit knackered. So you're fighting a convention of a sitcom type of lighting where you're actually trying to make it look like Alien, and it's never going to happen.
In 1987, Ed Bye was an up-and-coming comedy director, and the outer space setting for Red Dwarf was literally light years away from his earlier work as a production manager on The Young Ones.
The creative part of all of this, in its genesis, comes from Rob and Doug. So they would present the scripts. We would sit around together and talk about some of the things we could and couldn't do. If they present something, I'll look at it and go, yeah, I think we can do that, or no, I'm not sure we can. It was BBC Manchester. The whole place was behind us, and they just did everything they could to make it work. And some of the stuff we did was quite advanced, as in never been done before, and they embraced it and were brilliant.
The series was shaping up to be a true space saga. Now it needed an iconic theme, and the man tasked with devising the sound of Red Dwarf was composer Howard Goodall, no stranger to sitcoms, having previously written the music for Blackadder.
My general rule then, and it sort of still is my general rule with theme tunes for comedies, is not to write a funny theme, but to write something that fits the characters, who they are, where they are, what they feel about their life. At the beginning, I was that sort of spooky lone trumpet. Kind of opening where you'd see the side of the ship and everything. Which was really inspired by classical scenescape sounds. It still does turn into "Run to life far away from here." At the beginning, I was doing this kind of space, you know, Star Wars-y type thing. And the song for the end goes something like this. It's cold outside, there's no kind of atmosphere, I'm all alone, more or less. And I just twigged at the idea of creating this wall of sound to imitate Phil Spector's wall of sound of those big hits he had in the late 50s and early 60s. So I then went to Angel Studios in Islington, and it just so happened that the guy engineering it had been a junior on some Phil Spector recordings. And he'd remembered exactly the techniques that had been used to record it, like sticking mics at the bottom of the grand piano and then repeating all the bass lines several times over, so all that stuff down there. And that's how we ended up with that theme. When I was doing these lyrics, I did a kind of test run, so I could go into rehearsal and play to the team what the song would be. Here are the other ones. I want to taste lobsters and coconuts. I want to swim nakedly, get quite drunk in several wooden huts. Fun, 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 etc. And then there's another one. I'd like to have red blotches on my face, make a mess of my nose. I'd love to peel in every awkward place. Fun.
And finally, green lagoons, palm trees and cockatoos, local rum with the mango juice. Get things nicked and ruin all my shoes. Fun, fun, fun. So there's a theme there.
After all the hard work and false starts, the series was now ready to launch. But would it really take off?
When you're doing that first show of a new series, you are worried sick.
Oh, the first episode, I was absolutely shitting myself, to be honest.
You've got that smell of fear about failing because it's so not run-of-the-mill, and, you know, there's a lot more pressure.
That's the moment when you've got an audience coming in to something that is not Terry and June. And you think,
They didn't know what they were coming to see. They've just applied for tickets. They ended up in this weird thing set in space where everybody dies in the first episode.
Oh, this is terrible. And why is it so dirty around here, Hall? What is this stuff?
That is catering officer Olaf Peterson.
So I didn't think it got the laughs that it could have got, because I think the audience were really, truly baffled.
Rimmer, look, I know it's wrong of me to speak ill of the dead and all that, but you're still a smeghead.
I thought that it was accomplished in what we wanted to do, and we were really pleased with the way it looked and the way it performed. What we didn't like is the way that it didn't get a good audience reaction.
Never before shown on TV, here's a glimpse at the original studio recording of Red Dwarf's first episode.
If you hadn't kept that stupid cat and hadn't been sent to stasis, I would have had some help when I was mending the drive plate, and I wouldn't be dead. The dead.
What's it feel like?
Terrible!
Rob and Doug rewrote stuff to make it funnier, and we reshot it. Not all of it, bits of it.
What's it feel like? Death?
It's like being on holiday with a group of Germans. I'm gonna slide in here, this big room, and see if there's any food in it.
The cat's original appearance further baffled the already confused studio audience, so it was reshot to provide a much more dynamic entrance.
How am I looking? Looking nice.
And originally, one cast member wasn't supposed to be seen at all.
Good morning, Dave. It is now safe for you to emerge from stasis.
We did the first few episodes when Norman was just a voice, but so it's just like me looking up in the air going, what do you think about that, Hall?
George would like to invite everybody, especially those who weren't able to attend his funeral. It must be ego. I've got to put my hands up to it. I must have been thinking, on TV, just my voice. What about my face? What about my boat race? Come on, let's get it.
You saw him doing the lines, you looked at that face, you go, this is a waste, that should be on a screen. Look at that lugubrious, miserable face. Stick it on a screen.
Holly? What is going on?
Look, I'm a 10th generation AI hologramic computer. I'm not your mum.
So he would be put behind the drapes on a chair with a black cloth round his neck, just talking into a camera. He just loved it. You all right, Norman? Yeah, it's fine. Get on with it.
Light years in the making, Red Dwarf finally landed on the 15th of February 1988. Somewhat undersold by the Radio Times, and with Danny's role still an end-of-episode surprise.
I said, look, this is either going to be the greatest thing ever made, or it's going to be the worst pile of poo in the history of television.
I remember the first review in a magazine called City Limits. It was like, this is the voyage of the starship Red Dwarf. Its mission to boldly go where many sitcoms have gone before, up its own arsehole.
Smeg off.
We were getting reviews like that. I mean, take this rubbish off. I mean, it's just got slaughtered.
But the public really, really, really got behind it very, very quickly, and people come to me, oh, we love it, oh, it's so funny.
And I said earlier, Red Dwarf, Red Dwarf, Red Dwarf, and Sally Palmer from Southampton's been on the line. She said, I really loved it. It's so good to see something just a bit different from the normal series shown. Madeleine Gilly from London's been on the line to say, I thought it was a brilliant programme, full of good jokes and quick wit. Michael Stubbs from Liverpool said, it's the best comedy programme I've seen for ages.
You're getting that kind of endorsement from the public. It was absolutely you know, a real boost.
Got about 4.5 million viewers on the first episode or something like that, which was like a really big viewing figure. And it just steadily grew and grew and grew.
Ratings had been strong for BBC Two, and unusually, the show was awarded a second series before the first had even ended. Red Dwarf's travels would continue.
People had invested into this strange world where there's only one human hologram and a cat. People had invested into that.
There's always a voyage of exploration with any show, but the idea is always to get bigger and better and funnier.
Coming up, we visit paradise on a BBC budget.
It's incredible. It's just like being here.
I just remember cold and the tide coming in very quickly.
And Crichton joins the crew.
You're the new boy. I'm still the new boy 31 years later.
In the spring of 1988, just weeks after the fledgling first series had launched, production began on Series 2 of Red Dwarf. The show was in orbit. Now it was ready to really fly.
2 did feel, looking back at it, as though it was a lot funnier. 2 was the guys finding their feet and getting into their stride. The concept had been established.
Rob and Doug had obviously learnt a lesson or two, perhaps, in the writing of it and the characterisations. We were all in a better position to take the show forward.
We're a bit short on a few supplies.
Like what?
Cow's milk. Ran out of that yonks ago. Fresh and dehydrated.
What kind of milk are we using now?
Emergency backup supply. We're on the dog's milk.
Dog's milk?
Some of the stuff in Series 2 that I did was terrific writing. You've got to say that the writing was fantastic.
Lasts longer than any other type of milk, dog's milk.
Why?
No bugger would drink it.
We just wanted to grow the show. I didn't think much changed in the second series. The ideas got a bit better, a bit more far out. You could fire the imagination a little bit more. That whole idea of Better in Life, the video game, is just stunning.
Better in Life it is! Brilliant! Let's play!
Plugging themselves into a total immersion video game meant that the Dwarfers would be expanding their horizons, and the cast and crew were to film on location for the first time.
We were supposed to be going to Paradise. So in Lister's mind, of course, we were going to Barbados.
They talked to you about, oh, no, we might get off to Spain for a week, or we might do it in Tenerife, we might do it in Ibiza for a week. And you know that they're just talking bullshit, and by the end of it, you've got to be on real beach, which we were, in the freezing cold.
What sort of game is this? It's incredible. It's just like being here.
Real beach for paradise. Yes, that was a stretch.
I just remember cold and the tide coming in very quickly.
It wasn't the greatest day on earth, you know? It wasn't the sunniest day. In fact, it was a shit-awful day.
We all froze to death. There are scenes, probably in outtakes, with a howling gale, palm trees going over.
It was meant to be paradise, but in reality we're sort of in Hawaiian shirts and shorts, and it was about below 5. Even the cocktails were freezing.
And every time somebody said cuts, the boys and girls from the wardrobe department would rush in and wrap them up with coats and blankets and try to bring them back to life again in time for Ed to say, and turn over.
From the top, as before.
It's 110 degrees in the shade. We're in the Bahamas and shit.
And then at the end of the day, we got buried up to our necks in sand and had our faces smeared with jam.
You've ruined this, Rimmer! We're gonna die, and it's all my fault! Ah!
You don't really want to be with jam and you can't touch it, and you've got to grin and bear it there.
Can we go now?
But, you know, us dwarfers, we kind of deserve that. We're used to that.
Thank goodness. My name is Crichton. I'm the service mechanoid aboard the Nova 5. We've had a terrible accident.
Further life-changing adventures awaited. Answering an SOS from a doomed spaceship, the Red Dwarf posse were about to meet the prototype version of their robot chum.
I was desperate to bring in a robot. Rob was desperate not to bring in a robot. However, I persuaded him to have a robot in the opening episode of Series 2, which was Crichton.
Come along, everybody!
Crichton was introduced, and I'm talking about the really good Crichton, you know, the one who could really act.
That part was written for me specifically because I'd worked with Rob and Doug on radio.
Miss Jane,
They thought I could do a rather posh, prissy little character, which Crichton became. Oh, that's lovely, sir. Thank you, sir. That's so good of you, sir. Thank you. That's marvellous.
Why, you haven't touched your soup. No wonder you're beginning to look so tasty.
He played like a quintessentially English butler, and that was a great episode.
The mask took 8 hours to fit that first day, because they'd never fitted it before on anybody. Obviously, I was the first Crichton. And it took from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon to fit it and then costume up. And then we shouted action, and it went on from there. And Crichton was born.
Is anything the matter?
Anything the matter? They're dead.
Really, who's dead?
They are dead. They're all dead.
My God. Well, I was only away 2 minutes.
The audience really loved Crichton, and I was pleased because I loved him as well. I wanted them to like him, which I think they did.
He had planted a seed, which was, we've got to get that Crichton back somehow, because that's a really interesting, fresh character.
Rob and Doug decided to make their bionic butler a permanent addition to the show for Series 3. But that's when a major malfunction occurred.
We tried to get David Ross back, but he was double booked.
I was at the Old Vic doing A Flea in Her Ear at Jim Broadbent, and they changed it to Saturday night filming. And they couldn't make it work because I couldn't be off stage into the studio on a Saturday night.
A new Crichton was needed, but who would be man enough to play a mechanoid?
George is going ape crazy! Computer, put an isolation barrier around him!
Enter Robert Llewellyn, who'd previously made a name for himself on the 80s alternative comedy scene as part of sketch group The Joeys.
Oh my God! What have I done?
Here at the world-famous Pinewood Studios, rehearsals are taking place for a feature-length episode of Red Dwarf. And during a break, we caught up with the boys from the Dwarf for an exclusive chat.
The first Crichton, he was very good, wasn't he?
What a pity he was busy.
I know, what a pity he was busy, you know, proper thespian.
There was something Brando about him. 31 years I've been hearing this.
You're the new boy.
I'm still the new boy 31 years later.
How did you get the gig in the first place?
Mammon, Robot Born of Woman. Brilliant original theatre piece, Chris.
Yes.
Never saw it.
No.
Oh, God.
And it was at the Edinburgh Festival. Paul Jackson saw it, and he said, do you want to be in Red Dwarf? And I'd heard of Red Dwarf, but never saw the Crichton episode. So the next year, 89, I come and meet Rob and Doug, and they tell me it's a robot, and I do silly walks and, you know, voices and all that stuff. And I thought, oh, they're not going to want, you know, that won't work. And then I heard that they wanted me to do it. I'd just seen RoboCop. That's what inspired Mammon.
So you thought you were going to wear a bicycle helmet, sprayed silver, and that was going to be it?
Yeah.
Like, the
Yeah, and an unshaven jaw.
And a stiff neck for a while.
And a stiff neck. But then you, at lunchtime, take it off, bosh, off you go.
So you came into Red Dwarf and did another 108 accents.
Yes.
And another 300 walks.
Yeah, it was a lot of walks and accents.
Luncheon is served, sir. Mr. David asked me to find out how things were going on the exercise front. Managing to struggle through, sir?
Before we landed on you being Canadian, you started out like being C-3PO, didn't you?
I think it was English, wasn't it? In that sauna.
Yeah.
What? Because that was body swap.
That was body swap, yeah.
I'm afraid I'm not programmed to lie, sir. I have to tell the truth.
So what kind of accents did you play with? Because I know there was a Mexican one thrown in, wasn't it, at some stage?
Mexican. There was definitely Swedish.
Yeah.
We tried but then it was a bit like the Swedish chef of the Muppets. Hello, my name is Clayton. Mr. Lister, what can I do for you? Here are some roll mops.
Thinking about that now, imagine hearing that for 30 years.
Yeah, no, drive you...
he wouldn't be alive now.
No. No, I think that was the reason you were standing next to me and you were going...
At 0700 hours tomorrow morning, my shutdown disk will be activated and all mental and physical operations will cease. Then what? I don't know, maybe I'll get a job as a disc jockey.
I've been informed very confidently it's not a Canadian accent.
Oh, is it not?
I mean, I was trying to do one at the beginning because I'd just been in Canada the year before and it's nothing like that when you...
but it's a Canadian space accent.
Yeah, Canadian space accent.
What they're going to sound 3 million years in the future.
Exactly, 3 million years' time, they might sound like that.
It's Crichton's accent.
It's Crichton's accent.
End of.
That's it. Yeah.
Even more universe-shattering cast changes lay ahead. During Series 2, the crew had met their female counterparts in a parallel universe, as you do. which meant finding a suitable match for Holly.
Hello, I'm Hilly.
Hello, I'm Holly.
Hello, Holly.
Hello, Hilly.
Well, this is a turn-up, isn't it? You better boogie on over and we can sort it out.
Right on, sis.
See ya, Hol.
See you, Hill. I'm in there.
I was only meant to be in that one episode. And then, it was a year later, I got a call from my agent saying they want you to audition for Holly. And I went, well, that's a bit weird.
In real life, Norman Lovett had relocated to Scotland and wasn't keen on star trekking down to rehearsals in London each week.
You can see Norman's point of view because he's only a head on a screen. He doesn't really need to be at the rehearsals all the time. But I can see the boys' point of view that they wanted him at rehearsals because they thought they'd get a better performance out of him if he rehearsed with the rest of us and a better performance from us.
So I said, no, I'm not doing it, you know, forget it.
No, man, you can't do it, man. You can't do it. What you do? Oh, no, man. Yeah, I know.
We had a great relationship with Norman. It was great fun, and it felt like a real team. So when Norman left, we really worried that we were going to lose something.
You auditioned lots of other people, other actresses, and they weren't thinking of being that sort of monosyllabic kind of character. They had different ways of doing it.
I know Kathy Burke apparently went up for it. I thought that would have been interesting, because she's fantastic, isn't she?
But in the end, it was a sort of easy step.
Holly?
To keep the same type of character.
What's the time period?
Well, it's difficult to pin it down exactly, but according to all the available data, I would estimate it's round about lunchtime, maybe 1:30. Yeah, I did wonder what the reaction was going to be when I came in rather than there being Norman. I was just lucky because it was before social media. If anyone wanted to complain about it, they used to have to write to the BBC and it may or may not get passed on to me.
But Red Dwarf can only accommodate one version of Holly at a time, and Norman has frequently returned to play the floating head with an IQ of 6,000 PE teachers over the years, such as this surprise cameo in 2017.
Morning, all.
I was doing a costume change, and I just heard this enormous roar and rumble just going through the building.
Oh, I thought I was going to quantum skip somewhere good.
Craig came running round. He said I could have gone for a meal and come back and there'd still have been clapping and laughing.
When is this? Where am I?
It's Monday and you're in a corridor. Anything else I can help you with? At the end, I said, can I just talk to the audience? And I had a little chat to the audience and just said I'm very happy. It's made me feel very happy and it's lovely to be back.
Next time, Out of This World special effects.
It's like, wow, this is the bee's knees.
Making a mechanoid.
Eventually, everyone went out and I was sitting in there and I looked in the mirror and it was like a horror film. I mean, my heart rate went off the scale. It was like...
And feline fashions.
We've never done anything that went, I hate that, I'm not wearing it.
No.
We've never had that.
No. I've gone in a couple of times and gone, ooh.